tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Ine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Ine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Ine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. How wonderful it is for brothers and sisters to dwell together on Shabbat. How good it would be for all people to dwell in peace and in kindness every day. Shabbat Shalom. I'm Rabbi Bertie Becker. Welcome Shabbat Shalom Park. Welcome to our guests and relatives, friends, neighbors. Everyone is welcome here. We use a booklet, a siddur, made for Shalom Park. We are on page 2. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose and meaning. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may we live in such a way that this Shabbat fulfills its promise to us. Come, let us sing joyously unto God a new song. Sing unto God all the earth a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God and we'll all sing along. The earth a new song unto God. Shiru l'Adonai Koharetz. Shiru l'Adonai Shir Chadash. I will sing unto God a new song. Yismechu hashamayim v'tagel haaretz yiram hayam lo'o. Let the heavens rejoice and the earth be glad. Let the seas roar and all within it thunder. Light is sown for the righteous and joy for the upright in heart. Exalt in Adonai, O righteous, and give thanks to God's holy name. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. We welcome in the Sabbath bride, the Queen, L'chadodi, page 6. Come, meet the bride, come greet Shabbat. Ya la 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 L'chadodi, likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat ne Kabbalat, L'chadodi, likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat ne Kabbalat, la 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 shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad. Ishmianu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad. L'shem ol tiferet v'liti la 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 L'chadodi. Likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat ne Kabbalat, L'chadodi. Likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat ne Kabbalat, la 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 Likrat Shabbat. Lechu v'necha, ki makor habracha, merosh mikedem nesucha. Sof ma'asaba makshavati la 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 kadodi likrat kalav Pnei Shabbat Kabbalat l'chadodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat Kabbalat la 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 la. We rise as we are able to greet the Sabbath bride, physically or spiritually. Bo'iva shalom, hateret ba'ala, lam nisimcha zochala, toch emuneh am segula, bo'ichala la 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 chadodi, likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat Kabbalat l'chadodi, likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat Kabbalat la 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 la. Please be seated. As we welcome the Sabbath day, the Psalm for Shabbat. Tov lehodot l'Adonai u'lisameh l'shimcha elyon lahagid baboker chasdecha ve'emunatecha b'leilot Yalalai Yalalala 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 Yalalala. The righteous shall flourish like palm trees. They shall thrive like the cedars of Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai. They shall flourish in the courts of our God. On middle of page 11. Tzadik kadama yifrach yifrach. Tzadik kadama yifrach. Tzadik kadama yifrach yifrach. Tzadik kadama yifrach. Ke'erez belvanon yiskeh, ke'erez belvanon yiskeh, ke'erez belvanon yiskeh, yiskeh. Ke'erez belvanon yiskeh, ke'erez belvanon yiskeh, ke'erez belvanon yiskeh, yiskeh. We rise as we are able for the call to worship, the formal call to worship. Teach me, God, a blessing, a prayer, on the mystery of withered leaf, unripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, even to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days, lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways. Mahu et Adonai, Amevorach. Baruch Adonai, Amevorach, Amevorach leolam va'ed. Amevorach, Amevorach leolam va'ed. We take our seats. Uma'avir yomu mevi laila, umavdil bein yomu vein laila, Adonai tzvaot shemo, El Chai V'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai HaMa'ariv Aravim. And we take in the great love of God. And then we recite the Shema, the watchword of our faith that says, we are one. God is unique. God is one. And we are all one within God's realm. And then we give back the love. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Ahavta Torah Mitzvot Chukim Mishpatim Otanu Limadata Akein Adonai Eloheinu B'shochleinu U'kumeinu Nasiach B'chukecha V'nismach V'divrei Toratecha U'v'mitzvotecha Le'olam va'ed Ki hem hayenu B'orech yameinu Uvahem negeh Yomam v'layla Yahavat chel tasir Mimenu l'olamim Baruch Atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Hashem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. And let's read it in English this time. Page 19. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, and with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them whether you are tired or are rested. Let them guide the works of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside of your gate. You shall make for yourself tzitzit on the corners of your garments throughout the ages. Tzitzit are a reminder to do all of my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai, your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai, your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. This is Leil Pesach, the evening before Erev Pesach, before the night of, this is Erev Pesach, the evening before Leil Pesach, the night of Seder. And so we are going to be remembering in great detail this exodus out of Egypt into the Sea of Reeds that with faith we were able to cross. Mi chamocha b'limadonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, norah tehilot, o sefela, norah tehilot. kamocha, Belim Adonai, mi kamocha, Nedar Bakodesh, Nora Tehilot, O Sefele, Nora Tehilot, O Sefele, V'ne'emar kivod Adonai, Et Yaakov, Ugoalo miyad hazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael, Nichamocha, Balim Adonai, Mikamocha, Nedar Bakodesh, Nora Tehilot, O Sefele, Nora Tehilot, O Sefele. And with that same faith, help us, God, to lie down in peace and raise us up to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace and guide us with your good counsel. Bottom of 22. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu, Eloheinu l'shalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu, Eloheinu l'shalom. Ushmo tzaytenu, uvoenu l'chaim u'l'shalom. Ushmo tzaytenu, uvoenu l'chaim u'l'shalom. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu, Eloheinu l'shalom. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu, Eloheinu l'shalom. Ufros aleinu, Sukat shlomecha. Ufros aleinu, Sukat shlomecha. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu, Eloheinu l'shalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu, Eloheinu l'shalom. We turn to page 26. For the Hatzi Kaddish to be followed by the Amidah, our conversation with God. We rise as we are able. Yikadav yitkadash shamei rabba, ve'alma divrach yirtevi amlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye docho bet Yisrael, bagala, bagala, uvizman kariv, v'maru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach, l'olam ulol me'almaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpar, v'yitramam, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitalev, v'yithalal, shemei d'kudesha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata, v'shirata, tushbechata, v'nechemata, damiran belma, v'maru amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Ve'Elohei Avoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor V'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot, U'Mevi Goel Livnei V'Nehem, Lema'an Shemo, Ba'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ufoked Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye Metim Atarav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach, Umarid HaGashem, Mechakel Chayim B'Chesed, Mechaye Metim B'Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishene Afar, Micha Mocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umito Melach, Melech Memit, Umechaye, Umatzmi Ach Yeshua, V'ne'emanata L'hachayot Metim, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechaye HaMetim. Praise to you, Adonai, holy God. Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Vayehulu hashamayim v'ha'aretz v'chol tzva'am, vayechol Elohim b'yom hashvi'i, melachto asher asa, vayishbot b'yom hashvi'i mikol melachto asher asa, vayivarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i, v'kadesh oto kivo v'shavat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim la'asot. Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu, v'tzei V'mnuchatenu, Kachenu b'mitzvotecha, V'tein chelkenu b'toratecha, Sabenu mituvecha, V'samchenu b'yeshuatecha, V'tahel libeinu, V'tahel libeinu, Le'avdecha be'emet, V'anhilenu Adonai Eloheinu v'hava v'ratzon Shabbat kodshecha, V'yanuchu v'Yisrael mikadeshei shemecha, Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh HaShabbat. When we are overwhelmed by life circumstances, shield us from defeat with your words of promise. And when we are troubled by turbulence in our lives, shield us from chaos and confusion with your reassuring words of Shabbat, peace. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam, grant lasting peace to your people Israel and to all who dwell on earth, for you are sovereign Adonai of peace. May it please you to bless your people Israel and all people, Al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, all who dwell on earth, in every season and at every moment, with peace. Baruch atah Adonai hamavarech et amo Yisrael, Bashalom. we take a moment for silent prayer, prayers of the heart, prayers of devotion. Shalom Bimromam. Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Imru Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael. V'imru So because this is the evening before Pesach, and we have watched everything that gets cleaned and cooked and bought and prepared so that our houses are ready and our homes are ready and our hearts and our heads are ready for a Passover. It begins even out in the wheat fields. We watch as the wheat grows to make the matzah. As we're making it, we just knead with one hand so that there's not too much heat in the matzah dough. It doesn't rise. It doesn't become arrogant with that rising. And even out in the fields, we want to be sure that there's not moisture on it that's going to let that wheat rise, so that from the very beginning, we have matzah that we can use for Passover. This week's story is called The Mouse in the Matzah Factory, and it's written by Francine Medoff. Once there was a little mouse who lived in a wheat field in the country. One day men came and built a fence around the wheat field. Every day they watched over the growing wheat. They watered the field, pulled the weeds, and waited for the wheat to ripen. The little mouse watched too. He wondered what was so special about this particular wheat. When the wheat was ripe, the men cut it down. They worked carefully, making sure to keep the wheat dry. They tied it in bundles and loaded it onto a wagon, and the mouse decided to follow the wheat. Soon the wagon arrived at a mill. The mouse poked around until he found a hole in the bottom of the door and crept inside. Huge grinding wheels were crushing the wheat into fine flour. The millers carefully poured the flour onto brand new sacks and loaded them onto a truck. The mouse jumped aboard, and the truck sped away. He hid among the sacks, wondering where the truck would take them. They drove for a long time. They left the country with its open fields and wide spaces and came into the city. The little mouse peeked out. He saw tall buildings. He saw crowds of people. He heard the noise of cars and trucks on the street. And at last the truck stopped in front of an old building. Workers came to unload the sacks of flour. Quickly and quietly, the mouse jumped down and followed. An inspector stood at the door, checking to see that each flour sack was dry and tightly closed. The mouse was afraid he would be discovered, so he climbed onto a window ledge, squeezed through the crack, and hid behind a clock. He saw a large room with many people, and they were all very busy. In one area, workers were unloading the sacks of flour. In another, they were bringing in buckets of water. In the middle was a man with a mixing bowl. When the mixing man called out, the flour man scooped a cup of flour from the sack, reached through a little window, and dumped the flour into the bowl. When the mixing man called out again, the water man filled his pitcher with water, passed it through his little window, and poured the water into the bowl. The mixing man then worked very quickly, mixing the flour and water into a lump of dough. The little mouse watched. He wondered what was so special about this dough. The mixing man brought the dough to another area where many people stood at a long table. He gave a piece of dough to each person. They quickly rolled their dough into circles. The circles were passed from table to table, where a man poked holes into them with a special tool. He lined up the circles on a rack near a brick oven. The baker slid the circles into the oven. Minutes later, they were crisp and brown. A delicious smell filled the room as he took them out of the oven and placed them on a rolling cart. And all of a sudden, a bell rang. The people began to clean their work areas. They scrubbed the tables and sanded down the rolling pins. They washed and dried the bowls. And when they were finished, the mixing man reset the clock and called again for flour and for water. The mouse couldn't resist the delicious smell. He followed the cart into a room where people were packing the baked circles into boxes and tying them with strings. Families were standing in line to buy the boxes. He hopped onto the counter to take a peek. And this is what he saw. A sign that said, Goldstein's matzah. This matzah is made of wheat which has been watched from the time of harvest through the time of baking. That's right, thought the mouse. I watched the matzah. I watched it from the time the wheat began to grow in my wheat field. I watched it being harvested. I watched it being ground into flour. I watched it being made into dough. I watched it being baked into matzah. The mouse felt very important. He decided it was time to return to the country, for soon more wheat would be planted, and he wanted to be home in time to watch the matzah being made again. We take time to recall into our hearts everyone who is in need of healing. Includes not just those who are still suffering under our plague, our COVID plague, but anyone that you know, physical, spiritual, psychological healing that they might need. Say their names now. Put it into the chat. And we remember all the families whose hearts have been broken in the last 2 weeks. And we hold them in our hearts as we chant that the source of blessing give everyone strength. Misha Barach Avotenu Avraham Yitzhak Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah hu yivarech v'rapeh et hacholim. Elna rifana la. Elna with me. Elna Rifana. Elna Rifana. Elna Rifana. La. Please, God, heal quickly. Elna Rifana. Elna Rifana. La. We send those healing thoughts out into the county, the city, out around our state, out around our country, out around the world, and then up into the heavens. May our voices be heard. Page 39. It's not enough just to pray. We must also put it into action, how we treat each other, how we treat the world and all that is in it. Aleinu. It is up to us. Aleinu on page 39. Please rise as you are able, physically or spiritually. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teik gedula leyotzeh bereshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'anachnu Korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Let the time not be distant, God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. Kakatuv b'toratecha, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, v'nemar, v'haya Adonai le'melech al kol ha'aretz, bayom hahu, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who have died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own, Zikronam Livracha. May their memories be for a blessing. At Shalom Park, we are remembering in the coming week Minnie Margulis, Gerson Barter, Lillian Bryan, Vernon Schaefer, Elsie Taupers, David Hyman, Milton Carton, Carmelita Anderson, Charlotte Spiegelman, Martha Sedlick, Belle Escanos, Miriam Clerman, Bessie Toltz, Gertrude Schwab, Meryl Morrish, Sarah Allen, Victor Kramer, Jesse Grommet, William Garden, Rose Volok, Bess Menon, Francis Reed, Esfer Glazer, Jess Money, Hiala Jacoby, Zelda Gutman, Helen Mack, Jacob Grossberg, Hilda Siegel, May Sparger Payne, and Beverly Shear. Along with those who are remembering, that we are remembering at Shalom Park, we add the 8 people who were killed in the API, the Asian American Pacific Island community in Georgia less than 2 weeks ago. Then, just a few days ago, less than a week later, the Boulder community was devastated by another mass shooting. Here in Colorado, we are not new to such horrific events, and yet we are not and should never become accustomed to them. Our memories take us to Highlands Ranch Charter School 2 years ago, Planned Parenthood in Colorado Springs in 2015, the Aurora Theater shooting in 2012, and of course Columbine, that seemed to have begun the spree in 1999. We remember them all, and now we add the names of the Boulder victims and the victims in Georgia. And I apologize if I say any of these names incorrectly. Ashley Yan, Paul Andre Michaels, Zhiji Tan, Deyu Fang, Sun Chung Park, Hun Yun Grant, Sun He Kim, and Yun Yi Yu, Denny Stong, Nevin Stanisic, Ricky Olds, Trelona Bartkowiak, Suzanne Fountain, Terry Leiker, Kevin Mahoney, Lynn Murray, Jody Waters, and the first responder in Boulder, Eric Talley. We need space to mourn, space to be angry, space to ask why, space to support all those who carry scars that we cannot see. And most of all, we need space to remember the lives that were and the living that might have been. If you have names to add to the list, please say them now or put them in the chat. Those who are mourning, if you are in immediate mourning of Shiva, if you are in the 30 days Shaloshim, if you are in your first year Shana, please rise. And if it is your custom to rise for those who have no one to say Kaddish for them, please join us on page 45. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, Ba'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, B'chaye chon v'yomechon, uv'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehe Shmei Rabbah Mevarach, La'olam u'almei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal, Shmei d'kudashah b'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Da'amiran be'alma v'yimaru Amen. Yehe Shalama Rabba min Shemaya, V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimaru Amen. Oseh Shalom b'mromav, Hu ya'aseh Shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, all who dwell on earth, v'yimaru Amen. May the one who brings peace to the heaven grant comfort to all who mourn. Together we say, Amen. And now we pause for a moment to light Shabbos candles and welcome in the Sabbath bride once again with the candle lighting. And then we'll follow that with Kiddush and Motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. and Kiddush. If you're in the book, you'll find it on the last page. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho v'hava ratzon hinhilanu, zikaron l'maaseh b'reshit. Ki hu yom tehillah lemikra kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Ki banu v'charta v'otanu kidashta mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha v'ahava uv'ratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. And Motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. May you see the blessing in all your days. Notice beauty and sweetness and be amazed. May you love without bound, ever feel God's surround. May you mend and tend. May you learn without end. May you see the blessing. May you seize the blessing. May you be a blessing in all of your days. Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei HaMalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei HaMalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Barhuni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei HaMalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzeitrem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei HaMalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shabbat Shalom. And Hag Sameach for the coming weekend. May you have a lovely week and a beautiful week to come. And I will see you next Shabbat.